This video was recorded live before a canned studio audience. It's Friday Night Movie Reviews, and here they are, Chris and Keith.
Thank you. I'm Keith.
I'm Chris.
And this is Friday Night Movie Reviews. But tonight we're not going to be reviewing a movie that we went to see at the theater. We're going to be reviewing one that is on video. And guys, I want you to welcome our guest star tonight. This is my son, Bywin. He also saw the movie that we're reviewing tonight. So everybody give him a round of applause. There you go. All right, say hello, Bywin.
Hello.
So, obviously, this is part of our rental review series that we do. We review a movie from the past. So, today we're reviewing Transformers, the movie from 1986.
Yeah, otherwise known as
Transformers 86.
All right. So, I had never seen this movie before, even though when it came out, I was old enough to see it. I hadn't seen it, but Chris saw it and let me know about it. Now, I had heard some things about it when it did come out, but I just never did watch it. I was always a fan of the cartoon series that was on TV, and if you watch this movie, then kind of what you want to do is you kind of want to, I mean, you could go into this movie watching it without watching the cartoons, but it's going to make a lot more sense if you watch the cartoons. And then if you watch season 1 and season 2.
And then go into the next season after you watch the movie. Yeah.
Right.
So that's where this movie takes place at.
Right. It kind of falls in the series in between seasons 2 and 3. So it's going to make a little more sense if you watch those, especially season 3 of the cartoons will make a little more sense if you watch the movie.
But this movie is infamous for some very glaring, obvious reasons that have been spoiled because this movie, is 2 years younger than me. So the spoilers have been out there forever. The big glaring thing. Dun dun dun.
Nah, we'll get into it a little later. First, let's talk about the movie itself. What we actually how we actually
felt about it. Yeah,
and the content of the movie. This was a movie that was made for kids. However, I will say that there's a pretty good bit of violence in this movie. Even though it is Transformers, there's a pretty good bit of violence in it. And when I say violence, I mean, not just guns blazing and things like that like in the cartoons. Although this is animated, the animation in this movie is a lot better than that in the cartoons, of course, because it is theatrical animation.
Yeah, they up the budget, they up the animation cost, they up the music costs in the film. Everything is an improvement from the show.
Right.
Now, depending on which version of this you watch, the international version, we will bring this out, does have some language in it, and unfortunately, if you own it on Blu-ray from like the Shout Factory version, that's the one that we watched, was my copy of the Shout Factory one. It does include 2 cuss words that occur in the film, one more serious than the other.
Right.
And really, by today's standards, because it simply had that one cuss word in it, it would be a PG-13 film instead of PG. So that is something to be aware when watching it, is that if you do have young ones and you don't want them around language, this one does have 2 words in it that do show up, and they were glaring, like you hear them right away, and it's not like something that's just happening in the background when they're being said, because he caught both of them, Keith did, when we were watching them, and luckily his son didn't catch them, but we did as adults. Right. But so that part's a little bit harder, and you're talking about the violence. Like normally they just shoot at each other in the cartoon, and there's no repercussions from it. They both go their separate ways.
Or they get hit and they just kind of fall backwards. With a little bit of smoke coming off of them, and they get up and they go on.
Yeah, this one they're dead.
Yeah,
they're dead.
Yeah, they get shot and they are gone.
So,
and when I say gone, I mean not that they're taken onto the ship and Ratchet fixes them up and they just kind of limp around for the rest. No, they're gone. They are out. They're out.
Pew pew.
Because I believe what was happening at this time was Hasbro, it was basically gearing up for another line of toys.
Yep.
And what they were doing with this movie was, I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there. Everybody already knows this anyway. The cartoons were nothing but giant commercials.
And this was nothing but a toy commercial too.
And this was nothing. This was not any different. It was nothing but a toy commercial. Now, there were some big names that were involved that did some of the character voices. We'll get into that in a minute. But Hasbro was gearing up for another toy line, and what they were doing was just kind of getting rid of
out with the old, in with the new.
Exactly.
And that's how they approached it. They didn't realize the emotional attachment that children had to these characters.
Right. And they were killing some big name characters in this movie. They were really often some big name characters. We'll get into that a little bit later. But yes, they were killing some people off. They're Transformers, not people. Transformers. They were killing off some Transformers. So let's get a perspective from our guest on what he thought from a kid's perspective. What did you think about this movie, about Transformers '86?
I have no idea.
Have no idea. See, he spent a lot of time doing something else. We thought he would enjoy this movie, but he spent a lot more time doing something else than he was watching this movie.
He did watch like key scenes, but there would be parts of it I'd see him over there on his iPad because we were obviously watching this from the house. So, we weren't in a theater, so he had access to his tablet, during the movie. But I mean, we had just sat through The Wild Robot, and then we decided to watch this one afterwards. And so he caught bits and pieces. I mean, of what you did see, did you like any of it, or were you upset about it? Like, how did you feel about how they handled the characters?
I don't know.
You don't know. Well,
now I will say this: this movie was from '86, so think of the old '86 cartoons, and that's the style of animation that it had in it. But like we said earlier, it was really ramped up because it was theatrical. Now, the music that was in this thing, the music was pure 1980s either synthesizer music or 1980s hair band music all throughout the whole entire film.
So if you love 80s music, this movie has it and does not stop. It goes full thing. So that part probably hasn't aged well. So if you're not into 80s music, you're going to be like, oh no.
Right.
And they don't stop. Even they revamped the Transformers theme is played, and it's this hair metal band playing it, and it's awesome sounding, And just from the get-go, you know what you're walking into with this film. It is pure 80s.
Now, we're going to announce some spoilers here. And just, I mean, basically, because if you find any reviews on this movie anyway, besides ours, you're going to get spoilers anyway. So, like we were talking about with with them killing off some big name characters, they killed off some good Transformers.
Pretty much the entire G1 line. Yeah.
Almost the entire G1 line. I think really the only survivor of it was probably Bumblebee.
And Jazz. Yeah.
Jazz and RC.
RC, yep.
I think those were about the only ones. Hot Rod,
Cup.
And Cup.
Yeah. And
those were about the only survivors.
Yeah.
Everybody else, and when I say everybody, I mean everybody else, yes, even Optimus Prime, even I am Optimus Prime. He was.
And this is what caused the controversy with this film. This movie bombed at the box office when it came in. Eventually, it became a cult classic later on, but this it bombed at the box office
because they didn't know how much kids loved me.
And these parents wrote in to Hasbro saying, our child will not quit crying at night because Optimus is dead.
Right.
And so they had to remedy that when they came back for the next season of the show. They actually have an episode called Return of Optimus Prime. And they had to undo a lot of the mistakes they had made in the movie because they looked at it just from a purely merchandising toy toy point of view. They didn't realize the emotional connection that these people had to these characters, and they had to remedy that. And from then on, notice that how many iterations of Optimus Prime can you find in toy form? Dozens at this point.
Right.
And I can tell you that this movie definitely was a toy commercial, because throughout the movie, his commentary to us was, I want that one. I want that one.
I have that one.
I have that one.
Oh, I got that one too. Yeah.
Daddy, can I get that one next?
Yeah, can I get that one? Can we look for that one? I've got that one and that one. Yeah, it was...
Ooh, I love Devastator. Astro Train.
Right,
like, you know.
right. I want Astro Train. Yeah, it was that. So it was a toy commercial all the way through, but what they didn't realize...
See, now he's got something to say.
What did he say?
Speaking of Astro Train, did you see it?
See? The movie is from 86, but still has that effect on children.
It's from a pure marketing standpoint from Hasbro, but like we said, they didn't really realize that the kids then really had an emotional attachment to these Transformers, especially to Optimus Prime. They didn't realize how much kids loved him, and when they killed him off, I mean, it was a sad ordeal. The dude went from being red, blue, and silver to gray.
And his head turns to the side, gone.
Yeah, his head turned to the side, and
little Daniel Witwicky, tears just flowing from his eyes, mimicking what the audience was probably doing back in '86 when they were sitting in this movie.
Right.
It was devastating. Even as an adult, watching it with them, I saw the look on Keith's face when Optimus died, and you could feel it in the room. It's like all the air just gets sucked out of the room when he dies.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible. And he made this whole, he's on the deathbed, and he's making this whole speech to Hot Rod about, it's up to you now, Hot Rod.
Well, Ultra Magnus.
Ultra Magnus.
Yeah.
It's up to you, Ultra Magnus.
And this is a good time to mention the cast. Ultra Magnus is played by Unsolved Mysteries Robert Stack. I mean, you know.
Right.
And then Hot Rod himself, Breakfast Club, Judd Nelson. I mean, you know. And then Megatron, spoilers, becomes Galvatron in the film. They switch his voice to Leonard Nimoy. Mr. Spock himself.
Yeah,
you
so
know?
that was really good. So some really big name people. Also, the planet eating brother of Cybertron. Now, if you don't know, Cybertron is also a Transformer. He basically sacrificed himself to become the planet for the Transformers to live on. He has a brother, and his brother's name is Unicron. And Unicron is in this movie, played by none other than, or voiced by none other than, Orson Welles.
Yes, his last actual role. And then they quoted him before he died. He goes, I played some toy. That's that was his only quote. That's the only thing he had to say about the movie. I played some toy.
I played some toy.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like he was too enthused about
his voice as Unicron, every time he speaks, you listen to him. And,
yeah.
And the way he talks to Megatron, like, well, fine, you don't listen to me, you know, I thought more of you, and he just tosses him back out into space.
Yeah.
And you have Megatron just begging for mercy, which you never see Megatron do.
Yeah. And
I can't say more for the cast. One of our favorite characters in the film was Cup, by far. Like, I'd seen the actor's name, and I know I've seen probably the actor in real life. I just can't place the name with the face. But his voice was perfect, and he always had an anecdote. Well, this reminds me of this battle, or this.
Right.
And then when he sees Unicron for the first time, Hot Rod looks at him and goes, well, what does this remind you? He goes, no, kid, this is a first even for me.
Right.
Like,
I've never seen anything like this before.
Like, it was great. Now, you can tell that Unicron's inspiration came from Galactus from Marvel, but it also came from the Death Star from Star Wars. You can tell they kind of borrowed heavily from Star Wars.
Right. And they combined the two, but it works. It works for this movie.
Yeah, it does.
It really does.
The only two other voice actors I think of note that I forgot to mention is Blur is played by the Micro Machines guy. If you go back and watch those commercials, he was like, he had the record for like the fastest speaking voice in the Guinness Book of World Record for a long time.
And he even did other commercials besides the Micro Machines.
Yep.
You know, they're at the end when they're talking about all the side effects for all the drugs and stuff.
He was the guy they would call. Yeah,
that's the guy that would do it. The guy that spoke really fast. No, they didn't speed it up. He just talked that fast.
Yeah, and he was perfect. I'm like, that was perfect casting for a Transformer, because a Transformer would be able to talk like that. And then,
and if you've ever watched any kind of Monty Python, you get Eric Idle. But he was playing the part of a junk motorcycle from the junk planet.
Junkion. Yep. And then Casey Kasem is also in the film. Mm-hmm. He has this very small part when they're on Autobot City at Lookout Mountain.
Right. Yeah. We were thinking, hey, is it? I asked Chris, does this movie take place in Tennessee or right at the edge of Georgia? Because it says it's Lookout Mountain.
And it kind of looked like Lookout Mountain.
It kind of did.
So that kind of took it. I had forgotten about that part because I've seen this movie dozens of times, but I had forgotten about that. But we got a chuckle out of that. They're like, oh, okay, so the Transformers actually occurs close to us. We're thinking it all happens on the West Coast in California.
Now, if you guys are familiar with Casey Kasem, he did, or unfamiliar with him, he did the America's Top 40 on the radio for so long, and he also did a lot of, and I didn't know this until later on in life, he did a lot of voices for cartoons for Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, he was. His most famous, obviously, is Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
Zoinks! Hey, Scoob!
Fantastic impression. But yeah, so that you had Casey Kasem, so they really put as much into this. You had better animation, better music, better casting with the voices. I mean, you still had your regular people playing Optimus and Frank Welker playing Megatron before he gets switched to Galvatron, and so I can't say more about that. That was fantastic.
He also did the voice of Robin on Justice League.
That's right, he did. Yeah,
he did the voice of
Robin. So
that's
another one for you out there, Casey Kasem fans, that are when he played Robin.
Yeah,
so
he voiced a lot of different characters across a whole big spectrum of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. But yeah, he was in this movie too, and you can pick his voice out. When you hear him, you're gonna be like, wait a minute, I've heard that voice before. Maybe it was on the radio. And it's Casey Kasem.
Yep.
For sure.
But yeah, just the short summary of the plot. So Unicron wants to destroy the Matrix, which is inside Optimus. He dies, so he sends Galvatron to destroy the Matrix. And so the journey is like, who's going to become the next Prime? You're trying to figure that out. You're thinking it's Ultra Magnus. That's the part of the movie I will not spoil, which it's probably been spoiled in every other review of this movie, but I will at least leave that as unspoiled in this one, who is the next Prime. So, just to encourage you to watch this one, because I think you should. I mean, yes, is it campy 80s? Absolutely, but...
Is it dated? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but I still have a good time watching it, and I respect it for what it is. I respect it for its failures, but I also respect it for its cult classics and for the people that were associated with it. Right. So it has pluses and minuses. Is it perfect? Absolutely not.
No.
But... should you own it? Oh yeah, it's a classic. It's a cult classic. I especially if you like old 80s animation, add it to your collection. If you're a Transformers diehard fan and you're a completionist, oh yeah, you got to have this in your collection.
Yeah, because it does, like we said earlier, it does take place between seasons 2 and 3 of the G1 cartoons. So let's rate this movie.
Yep.
I personally, this would probably be a movie that I'd watch every once in a while. I probably wouldn't sit down and watch it very frequently. Honestly, the music is so nonstop from beginning to end that it does get a little bit nerve-wracking. Because they give absolutely no breaks in the movie. Not when anybody's talking, not when action's going on, nothing. It's just consistent music throughout the entire thing. and that can get a little bit nerve wracking. As far as rating it goes, I would probably give this probably about a 6.5 or 7 out of 10 popcorns.
Yep. Same for me, 6.5 to 7. It's in that range because, just because it's dated and clearly has failures.
Right.
It's not a perfect film, but it's still a cult classic, so I'm still going to give it in that range.
And mostly the
better
reason,
than average.
Mostly the reason why I would is because of the nonstop music, and because they killed me.
Yep.
That's the other reason why.
That's the biggest sin in the movie.
Yeah.
You don't kill Optimus Prime.
That's terrible. Death hurts.
They also killed my boy Ironhide. Like you don't do that. They killed Ratchet. Like
they killed Sideswipe.
Sideswipe died. Like
I'm telling you, people, they killed just about everybody. There wasn't hardly anybody in the old line of toys that survived.
Yep.
So, how many slices of pizza would you have given that movie?
3 out of 10.
3 out of 10.
Ooh.
3 out of 10 slices of pizza.
I didn't really like it that much.
You didn't really like it that much, and that might be the reason why he didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. It was very, very dated, but what you have to understand, bud, is back during that time, that was a big time cartoon.
And that was actually a step up from the show, too.
Yeah, from the show.
That was as good as animation could get back then, honestly.
Right.
Because that whole scene where Megatron is being reformatted in the Galvatron when it goes into that purple grid, they had to draw that by hand. That was one of the most impressive scenes in the film.
Yeah, and that's something that you have to understand about this movie, and when you do watch it, is all of this stuff. There is no computer animation in this film, so none of this is computer generated. It is all drawn by hand, drawn and colored by hand, the way cartoons used to be done. So
yeah, and that's the reason why I try not to be too hard on this movie, because people literally had to sit there and hand draw every one of those cells.
Every single frame of the movie was hand drawn. So just understand that when you see the movie and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, how can anybody like this?" It's a work of art actually, because they had to.
And that's just an art style that doesn't exist anymore either.
Right.
It's just gone.
Right. Yeah, because everything nowadays is computer animated and computer generated.
And I honestly think the reason why they did that for the music is they really geared this towards only children to watch.
Yeah.
Because short attention spans, because the movie just moves.
Yeah.
There is no down moments in the film for you to breathe.
Really. No.
It literally goes from action scene to action scene, a little bit of exposition, but with heavy music playing while they're talking, because they know that kids don't care about the exposition.
Right.
So
they got to have something to keep their attention.
Yeah, and it does. They keep the attention. So if you were a kid back then, when that was your only source and iPads didn't exist, he would have been rating this higher. But iPads unfortunately exist now. So can you let your kids watch this? Just again for the disclaimer about the language in it, that might be the holding back. And if you don't want them to see the Transformers die, because some kids will be very sensitive to that, because again, it's Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And they killed me. And I don't understand why.
Money, toys.
I thought they liked me.
Money, toys. I'm speaking for Hasbro right now. And I can't say nothing. I've been a big supporter of Hasbro for years. We just gave Transformers 1 last week a huge glaring review. So we're not hitting on you too hard, Hasbro. It's just that be aware of your failures, be aware of your successes.
Yeah, and I think they were.
Oh, yeah.
I think they learned their lesson, especially from that one.
Yeah, Optimus Prime never died again after that, because even in the live action movies, he died, but then what was it? 15 minutes later, he was alive.
They brought him back. Yeah. So.
Yeah, they won't even kill Megatron in those movies.
No, they won't even kill him in those movies. So, it was okay. I'm not gonna say that it was the best animated film ever made, because it definitely was not. It did have its failures, but it was for the time that it was and for what it is, it was still a good movie. Well, that's our cue to go.
Yep. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell for the notification for when our next video drop. Leave us a comment. What did you think of 86?